The Tampa Bay Rays failed to play to run against the Red Sox in the final game of a 3-game series against them. It was unfortunate, but let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Rays podcast, your daily podcast covering everything Tampa Bay Rays, from game analysis to player interviews. We've got you covered with all the latest news and insights. My name is Kevin Weiss. Ulises is not here today, but we will be back together for Friday's episode. As always, we're bringing you expert analysis and passionate discussions about our beloved Rays. So go ahead, grab your favorite Rays gear, settle in, and subscribe to our Locked On Rays YouTube channel and other podcast platforms. You can also find us on X and Instagram at Locked On Rays. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, that was an interesting series, home series against the Boston Red Sox. The final game of the series wasn't so much fun, as the Rays, of course, lost to Boston by a score of 1-0. Over the years, that's been something we've been accustomed to as Rays fans, a little shutout. Unfortunately, the Rays could not play to run across in this game with, believe it or not, a guy that was more so a spot starter, a fill-in starter, Sean Newcomb. And then after that, the Red Sox put together a mix and match of relievers to close the deal against Tampa Bay. So, yes, it sucks that the Rays didn't score a run. You wish that they could have taken some of the 16 runs that they scored earlier in the series and transferred those over to yesterday's game. But alas, that is not how baseball happens, unfortunately. But if there is a bright spot out of getting shut out, and there's not many, especially when you consider that the Red Sox lone run was on a barely homer by one David Hamilton, who's not really necessarily known as a home run hitter, and he did that off Zach Littell. And that's what happens at Steinbrenner Field, and you have the short right field porch. You can use it to your advantage, and the other team can also use it to their advantage. And I don't know, maybe Zach Littell should have thrown a slider away or a splitter down instead of a fastball or whatever he threw against David Hamilton. But it's hard to be too critical of Zach Littell from this most recent start. I know he's had a very up and down season thus far, but we can mark that in the quote unquote win column of hopefully this is Zach Littell returning to his normal form, as opposed to some of the previous outings that we've seen from him. We've seen a really bad outing, a god-awful outing. I don't know how you say anything but that when you give up 4 homers to the Angels and 7 earned runs in 4 innings, and then 2 very, very good outings. And that's what he did this time around, and hopefully he's able to keep it up, because himself, Ryan Pepio, and the rest of the crew really need to continue to do solid work with the absence of Shane McClanahan. And, you know, if one of those guys struggles or gets hurt, at least there is some modicum of confidence in the fact that maybe Joe Boyle can come up again and do amazing things. But good for Zach Littell. I know that he gave up the homer. That happens. That's going to happen very frequently. But he did also get himself out of a critical bases loaded jam. So all in all, I think this is a good stepping stone for him to hopefully build and continue a good streak. And that's what we need from him, because it's going to take a while for him to get his ERA down. Meanwhile, we saw some really good performances defensively by the Rays, if you're not named Jose Caballero. I mean, this was probably the Jose Caballero worst game of the season, between the amount of strikeouts that he had, how those strikeouts occurred, and then the drop ball in the outfield. But aside from that, Taylor Walls continued to do Taylor Walls things. Jake Mangum taking off his hat to make a amazing play, running into the wall, handling the catch. And that dude, as we've said many times on this podcast, he is just an absolute gamer. Plus, the score could have been worse if Jarren Duran got to third, but thankfully for our catcher, he was able to throw Jarren Duran out at third to prevent a possible would-be run. So, yes, it's not the most ideal of situations, the fact that the Red Sox took 2 of 3 against the Rays, but hey, there's a lot of games to be played. The Rays are still, I think, in a very manageable spot. Right now, they're 8-10 and 8-7 at home. And if you look at the numbers, which we may get into later on the program, the numbers offensively and defensively are actually pretty respectable. If you look across the board, league averages, the Rays are essentially top 10 as a pitching staff and top 10 as offense is concerned. So there are some building blocks that you can appreciate. All right, we have more to discuss since it is me solo for this episode. I wanted to get to a couple of mailbag questions, but before that, we have to tell the audience a couple of very important things. All right. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console is required, by the way. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. So what are you all waiting for? Go ahead, head over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller is required. That is available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, the second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, the first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube, the third generation. We also want to tell you about Game Time. There's nothing better than catching an MLB game live, the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and the smell of ballpark food. And if you're looking to go to last-minute games, well, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever with last-minute ticket deals, all-in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as Game Time gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. So go ahead, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today for those last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. All right, I wanted to get into a couple mailbag questions here. First off, I wanted to note that the Rays by OPS are 7th in all of baseball. Ahead of them are the Yankees, the Diamondbacks, the Cardinals, the Cubs, the Padres, and the Dodgers. And the Athletics are right behind them. And if you look at the pitching numbers, that's not too bad either, despite the bloated ERAs of Zach Littell and Ryan Pepio, unfortunately. Yeah, like I said, it's going to take Zach Littell a little bit of time to get that ERA under control. He's going to need a lot of 6 innings, 1 earned run outings to make up for what he did a couple weeks back against the Angels. And interestingly enough, he is leading all Rays starters in innings pitched, and the guy who is not quite been as successful either, Ryan Pepio, is number 2 on the team in innings pitched, followed by Shane Baz, Tosh Bradley, and Drew Rasmussen. All right, getting to a couple mailbag questions here. This first one that I want to highlight and underscore comes from our buddy that has reached out to us on multiple occasions. 702 Living, but always with the 813. The question is, why is Shane McClanahan not on the 60-day IL? He is not even close to coming back. It would take almost a month or more to get stretched out again. Seems like they could use another guy on the 40-man. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And I don't know if we've heard an update on the status of Shane McClanahan recently, at least anything that's noteworthy or notable to report or discuss. I mean, we know about the injury right before the end of spring training, the nerve issue that he is dealing with. But yeah, it would be nice to know, hey, what is the exact specific timeline on when he would be returning? I mean, as of right now, if I'm going to be honest, again, we can talk about Zach Littell and Ryan Pepio, but I think the starting pitching staff is doing okay even without him. Of course, you want to have him part of the group. That's a no-brainer. But I think they've got a pretty solid rotation as it is. And as I mentioned, I think Joe Boyle really, really could be something special, as he showed in that spot start a little while back. So I think as far as depth is concerned, the Rays are okay. But as far as the 60-day IL question, yes, the benefit of the 60-day IL is that it would free up a spot on the 40-man roster. But I think part of the drawback is once you move someone, i.e. Shane McClanahan, to the 60-day IL, they cannot be activated for at least 60 days, even if they heal faster. So I guess the line of thinking is teams like the Rays, they don't want to close the door on a quicker return, especially if a player is important like McClanahan. So I guess the thought process behind it is, maybe some sort of miracle happens, or the Rays are not telling us something that they know that it's not going to take Shane McClanahan necessarily 60 days to get back on track. I don't know if, as far as taking a month to ramp up, I don't know about that. Maybe they ease him in relatively slowly and start him with a couple innings here or there, and then build him out beyond that. But that is really the real risk of once you put him on the 60-day, he's got to be on there 60 days, even if he's healthy at day 45. So that's really the big overarching theme, I would say, with Shane McClanahan. And you make that move and you send him the 60-day. Who are you going to call up? And if that player and who that player you call up is, are they going to get meaningful reps? Because there's so many prospects that we talk about that we want to add to the 40-man, but you also have service time and contractual situations or arbitration clocks to deal with. So there's moving parts when that is concerned. And then if Shane McClanahan's on the 60-day IL, you take him off, then you got to figure out what you're going to do with that lost spot. So in short, I hope I'm answering your question somewhat decently. If a guy like McClanahan is definitely out long-term and they need the roster spot, they'll use the 60-day IL spot. But if there's hope that McClanahan can return sooner, or the team, like the Rays, doesn't urgently need that spot, then it makes sense in a way to hold up or hold off, I should say. So there we go. Wishing the best for Shane McClanahan, and hopefully he returns sooner than later, and he can help this team win games. I know that the win-loss record isn't ideal right now, but as we're going to continue to say for the next month plus, it's still early. It's still very early. As long as they don't dig themselves into an extremely deep hole, I think they'll be okay. They'll be okay. And at some point, there will be reinforcements like McClanahan, like Kim, like Josh Lowe, although I don't even know if we really need Josh Lowe at this point with what Jake Mangum and Cam Meisner's doing, among others. But that's one of those good problems to have, if you will. All right, we have more to discuss. But first, we have to tell the audience something very important. All righty. It is time to tell you about Prize Picks. Basketball and hockey playoffs are heating up, and there's no better way to turn your sports knowledge, your amazing sports knowledge, into real rewards with Prize Picks. Say that 5 times fast. Real rewards. Prize Picks, it is the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you simply pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and you're in. You can even combine players across sports, basketball, hockey, baseball, and more for your chance to win up to 2,000 times your cash. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. One last mailbag question that I want to get to because I think it's an interesting one. It comes from Juan Almirola, and his question is in regards to the Rays and possibly adding a designated hitter like JD Martinez. He says, I wonder if the Rays could get JD Martinez since he's still a free agent. Obviously, he wouldn't get as many at-bats, but I think he would help as a team leader and could coach these young hitters. All right, Juan, we appreciate the comment there. I don't necessarily disagree, and it's interesting that JD Martinez is still out on the market. I would think with some of the injuries going around that a team would give him a call, but I'm sure he has an asking price and he wants to stick to that asking price, especially if he's a Scott Boras client. As far as the Rays are concerned, yeah, it's tough because, and the Rays aren't the only team to do this, but Martinez is very limited defensively, and he's really just limited to being a designated hitter. So that really puts a stranglehold on if you sign him, especially for millions upon millions of dollars. He is just going to get penciled into the DH spot, which prevents or limits the amount of quote unquote rest days that you can give a position player to get off his feet in the field and put him at that DH spot. So I think that's the big question mark, is the structuring and the versatility of the roster. I mean, I think the Rays' answer to JD Martinez was going out and signing Eloy Jimenez to a minor league deal. And I think, there's still a wait and see approach with that. I know that Eloy is not doing too hot in AAA, but, maybe at some point down the line, there's a need. If I had to guess, it seems like the Rays aren't going to utilize him anytime soon, but I think that was the poor man's answer, so to speak, to JD Martinez. And there's always a point, there's always a risk you take with a guy at Martinez's age. I believe he turned 37 in August of 2024. And I know he has a very lengthy track record. I mean, he had a solid season in 2024, was outstanding in 2023, but this is no longer the steroid era. Father time can catch up to you quickly. The Rays, to some extent, learned that with Nelson Cruz, but I think other teams learned that with Nelson Cruz after he left the Rays. It's hard to be productive into your very late 30s and early 40s as a major league player, especially when you combine it with the amount of health issues that Martinez has had over the years. He's dealt with nagging back issues and lower body soreness, especially over the last couple seasons. So I think those are some of the key reasons. And again, the Rays have so far a very solid group with them. You see what Jonathan Aranda's doing. You see what Cam Meisner's doing. You see what Jake Mangum's doing. You see what Chandler Simpson could do and some of these other young players could do. Do you really want to throw some of that off and limit their opportunities for, throwing millions of dollars hypothetically at JD Martinez, and then you're not really prioritizing youth as much? I mean, if Martinez was willing to take like a heavy discount, I'm saying like, we'll sign you for a year and, $1.5 million and work in some incentives. Sure. But at this stage in his career, the amount of money that he's made, I don't know if he wants to do that. I don't know if that's come across his desk yet. In fact, I think I saw a crazy article where he's like considering a career change to paddleboarding. Somebody will have to check me on that and see if that's accurate. But, I would imagine there'll be a team that calls if enough injuries hit. I would imagine that he worked out for some teams in the offseason and maybe he just, something was off for one reason or another. But you really have to be careful when you, even a 1-year deal with, a couple or several $1,000,000, it can go south quick, not from the leadership and being a guy that, helps mold some of the young hitters, but as far as the productive nature of things, you may have to eat that couple $1,000,000 if you sign him and he doesn't do anything. And the other issue, because we're now into April and he's unsigned, what's his fitness level, his condition, his game readiness going to be? Can he still swing a bat? Has he been working out effectively? Is he doing all he needs to do to stay in shape for that eventual call? So that's where we're at with that. I think the Rays are fine for now. Maybe there comes a point where they have to kick the tires on somebody like that, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I would think, that Martinez has a little bit left in the tank, but is the juice worth the squeeze when it comes to all that? So I'll just leave it at that, so to speak. All right. We hope you all have a wonderful day. I know it was just me, solo episode. They're not as fun, but you got to do what you got to do sometime. In the meantime, we appreciate you for listening, and we hope that you join us Friday. Ulises and I will be together recording, so stay tuned for